A very pleasant good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We're having a little problem as far as our intro music is concerned. That's the Turkish march, whatever it is. We will be celebrating or commemorating, as you would call it, the Holy Week beginning this Monday, so that we have the observance of Holy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we have Holy Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Easter. We are not broadcasting live next Saturday, but today we would like to acknowledge the fact that in commemoration of the Holy Week, we would like all of us to be able to understand the meaning of what it is that will begin tomorrow when Jesus enters Jerusalem on a donkey, and he was honored and hailed until such time as we see the Last Supper, the commemoration of the breaking of the bread, and of course the blessing of the sacrifice of Jesus, and then his the Garden of Gethsemane, and after which he was arrested, and then we have the trial of Jesus and the people shouting for him to be condemned and crucified. Pontius Pilate washing his hands of the responsibility over him. But nonetheless, we have seen how it goes, and that is the Via Dolorosa, the way of the cross, all the way until Mount Calvary, or where he was crucified, after which 3 days after he was buried, we had the resurrection, the commemoration of Easter. And so it is now that we would like to offer our prayers for this coming holy celebration. Our Muslim brothers are commemorating also the Ramadan, which is the period of their fasting, of thanksgiving, of forgiveness, and of compassion, in the same manner that we are also commemorating our Holy Week, which is so important for us because that is the center of our religion. And so, dear God, as we offer our prayers, receive our love and our gratitude for all the blessings that you have given us. May our minds be touched by God's holiness and our hearts sheltered by his grace, and the work of our hands guided by his kindness. We would like to open our souls to a deeper understanding of our compassion and our relationship with one another, and of the duties that we are obligated to perform, so that we can transform our words into instruments of God's divinity, unifying all our diverse intentions, and also reaching for that common goal of goodness and welfare for every individual. We pray for the constancy of your love, O Lord, your omnipotence, as we humbly ask for the strength and the fortitude to be able to transcend our own weakness and our imperfections. Be with us, O Lord, in every thought, word, and deed, that we may be worthy of your benevolence today and every day until we merit eternal bliss. So with that, we'd also like to greet everyone a happy Easter. Ado, you have been involved with so many of these Christian movements, and I'm sure that you could share with us at least a few lines for this important commemoration of Holy Week.
There is always time every year when everybody is called to repentance, and this is the perfect time for our corrupt officials, our incompetent rulers, and our greedy oligarchs to fall in line and submit themselves to the flagellants who will whip their conscience out of the deepest hole for which they currently belong. If you hear that those were the horns from Jerusalem calling all these misguided souls to return to the fold of Christ. And at the end of the day, my wife came home from the U.S. to visit me, and she always tells me, reminds me about my health and all that, and how old we are, and who will take care of us when we are near our deathbed. And I told her, oh, all of those things are irrelevant. The important thing, always, every minute, is how you stand with your personal Savior, Jesus Christ. It's really between you and Jesus, as far as I'm concerned. I have left, despite the many rituals in my past, I've left all of them and bottomed up to the same, a very simple faith, which is Jesus and I. How do I stand before Christ? Am I ready to be judged at this minute? You know, and forever be saved or forever be condemned to eternal damnation. It's as simple as that. There is no middle ground. There's no purgatory. You know, the only purgatory are those that the World Bank and the IMF creates for people who they don't want to lend money to anymore. That is the reality of our situation in the world. But if you're in the right side of history at this point in time, then mabuhay ka, ha? At pagpalain ka nawa ng Panginoong Kristo. Yan lang naman eh. Wala nang iba eh. Ha? And those who are in the other faith should also believe that there is real justice after life. Because we cannot really have, in this very secular life that we live in, bring everybody with us to where we are going if we are going with on the right side of history. And I'm talking about not the history of the world, but the salvation history. So that is it. Malayo po narating ko sa larangan ng pananampalataya. Munti ko pang dalhin ang Nazareno sa Africa. Can you imagine if I'm able to bring the Nazarene to Africa? I'll be a multimillionaire, But I've abandoned that plan already because it seems it's not really the one I'm seeking for, which is the ultimate truth. And the ultimate truth is in meekness. The ultimate truth is in humility. The ultimate truth is being poor in spirit. And how I just wish that we are governed by people who are meek, who are poor in spirit, and who have preferential option to the people who are materially poor. That is my word for this Holy Week. And as we go through Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday, we celebrate the greatest event in the life of any Christian, which is the resurrection. And when we alam mo ba, Rita, kung ano lagi ang greeting pagka Easter Sunday? It's very simple. The Lord is risen. He is risen indeed. But you don't reach Easter Sunday without passing through Good Friday. And that's what I mean. In Good Friday, you have to reconcile first with your Creator so that 3 days when He comes back to life, in history and in reality, you are able to have a living faith with someone who can really save you. Hindi lang yung basta ililigtas ka sa mga utang mo sa mundo. Hindi dahil ikaw ay naging isang matapat na alagad ng Panginoon at hindi ka nang abuso ng iba. Yan lang naman. Very simple, Rita.
So that's Paglinawan. And with those thoughts and with those words, we get into the subject matter of our program this afternoon. And that's exactly what we have to look into. Also, following your words, Ado, we have to bow down before the Creator and in all humility find out if we have really functioned the way we should, insofar as our respective obligations are concerned, our duties and responsibilities. So now we're into the 10 junior months, so to speak. I speak of junior here because every time our president is introduced, that's the last word of his name, Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. So we have here a man who is 10 months into our new government, a leader, the junior Marcos, chosen, voted upon by some 31 million votes, who despite all the attacks against his father and his family, he has not wavered as far as that is concerned and has gone into the realm of politics. And now we know that he is fully aware of how important his high office is. And he has accepted this when he took his oath of office. 80%, they say, of the archipelago were there for this election. 75, imagine, 75 of 81 provinces, 15 out of 17 regions, 16 out of 21 other provinces. And then you have all the other cities likewise, like in the capital region, for instance, 15 of that out of how many, how many regions we have here. But all of this amounting to 31.5 million votes. And that's according to the results of 106,000 precincts and about 50, well, if we have 54.25 million voters, that's how many voted for him. So as I've said, we have Ferdinand Marcos Jr., and we are now in the junior 10th month, the 10th month of this junior of Ferdinand Edralin Marcos. And we know for a fact that the responsibility he took his office was for the country, for God, for country and people. So let's see how his narratives, the speeches he has delivered, the programs that he has spoken of, whatever it is that he has launched, all of this summing up at least the 10 junior months. So what do you think of this, Ado?
Well, I wrote a book about this, and thank God I ended on his election day and did not comment any further, except that I made some projections. On page 219 of this book, The Poverty of Power, I said, my fearless forecast of an emergent bongbong leadership and first post-EDSA majority president was made on October 24, 2021. That was 7 months before the actual elections. I based my projections from a prophecy by Pascual Malanao in sometime between 1941 and 1944 to the Rizalistas of Nueva Ecija. Matapos makibaka ang sambayanan sa isang kaaway na hindi nakikita, isang Emmanuel ang darating para iligtas ang bansa sa kanyang pagkakalugmok sa isang mahigpit na pagsubok. So I will no longer deal with the details of that prophecy, except to say that it was not definitely Emmanuel Pacquiao that this prophecy was referring to. But it could have neither been his father, whose real name is Ferdinand Emmanuel. And because he was deposed and he was not able to uh, survive the vicissitudes of modern day colonialism in the hands of the Americans. Again, the details of those we have discussed so many times in the past. So, well, how was it transferred to him? It was transferred to him through the bloodline of Ferdinand Emmanuel. And that is totally possible because even in the Bible, those things happen. So it's no longer by name, but by bloodline. And during that time, I said this year, Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. filed his candidacy for presidency of the Philippines in the scheduled elections this coming month of May. And so, there you go. As it is his destiny to lead the nation in a crucial time, the same Bathala that we started this program today with has guided his victory into what I called incontestable heights, humbled any obstruction, and no longer by name but the bloodline of the Emmanuel, the Phoenix could not be anybody else but Bongbong Marcos. Bongbong would be our president by manifest destiny. At the end, Rita, of 500 years. You know, 500 years is very important in the history of mankind, even in the mythologies. You know, it is said that every 500 years, the phoenix goes back to die, but from the ashes of the old phoenix comes the resurrection of a new one. And this is in the annals of historians of the past. And this applies to the Philippines because 2021 was indeed 500 years from the time Magellan landed in the Philippines. Magellan landed on March 16, 1521. And so what we are experiencing now has been prophesied a long time ago, and even in El Filibusterismo, no? The symbol of the sacred bird rising every 500 years. No? The occasion of the unseen enemy, which is the COVID-19, has manifested itself. Ha? Alam mo bang propesya sa El Filibusterismo? Aagawin kita sa kamay ng dalubhasang pananalig at maputing kalapati, magiging phoenix kang muling sisipot sa mainit na abo. I will take you from the force of the hands of your colonial master and white dove. Sino ito? Ito yata Amerikano eh. And you will once again become a phoenix rising out of the burning ashes. So ayan. So whether we like it or not, Bongbong was in our stars. The problem now is how do we bridge that with the seeming interpretation of a rising phoenix when for the past 10 months he has brought nothing but well, how do I call it? Disappointment in my heart. He started very well. In fact, he started this year in the best possible way he could. He visited the People's Republic of China, and being the first head of state welcomed by China, ought to have augured well for a very positive and very uh, progressive, in fact, I would even say pace setting, beginning with a cooperation with China. And then he went to Davos,
Switzerland.
Switzerland. But as soon as he, and there, people were saying, how is he going to balance this whole thing with the United States because of our colonial past?
So let's proceed from there, because you have touched upon mythology and prophecy and several statements or several the narratives that we have in the novel of Jose Rizal. So here we have Ferdinand Marcos Jr. over the past 10 months, who has built for the office of the president that sense of importance and respect and honor. So is he a leader chosen by history or by circumstance or by mythology or by the convergence of prophetical pronouncements, whatever it is? Somewhere we have to look into the importance of how even the most gifted among us, whether he is a hero in the war or whether he is a hero in the arts, whether he is a hero in the sciences, if he does not realize his potential or make the fittest contribution to our times to be kindled by the aspirations and the accomplishments of where he's coming from those who have come before him, if that is necessary. Is he carrying this together with mythology, together with prophecy, together with the line of destiny? So the question is, was he chosen by history or the history of his father? Or was he shaped by events that have come about the past 37 years? Events that have radically changed our own outlook, that have radically changed the way we perceive leaders and politics. So, 10 months into his administration, how is Junior?
Well, from my side of the window, I see a man yet to establish his own identity before his people. I see a man who, in the past 10 months, have only confused his audience rather than illuminated the environment. I see a man who has frequently contradicting himself. And in fact, there are theories now circulating, and this is what's dangerous about this whole thing. Because right after he came from Davos, he made a turnaround and he adopted vociferously pro-United States to the point of even adding 4 more sites to the basis that we already have with the enhanced development, enhanced defense cooperation agreement that Noynoy Aquino signed in 2014 that is due for termination next year or extension. And up to now, the talk is suddenly, all of a sudden, from what he promised the people, continuity with the vision of his father, which is for a balanced agro-industrial economy, to a neoliberal economy. And from the pace of infrastructure and socialistic programs of Duterte, to protection of the oligarchs. A classic example is right now, there is an acceptance that the possibility of a fiscal collapse, Rita, is
Yes.
being not only admitted but being announced by no less than the finance secretary himself. Of course, we know this already, that there is an impending financial collapse because ang inuuna nila ay foreign policy, ang inuuna nila ay pagsipsip-sapwit ng mga Amerikano, samantalang ang talagang tunay na direksyon was properly placed and prioritized for post-pandemic economic recovery. We borrowed a lot of money during the pandemic. We gave out money to the consumers during the pandemic because there was zero productivity during the pandemic. Everybody, there was no movement, everybody were in their homes, and so the economy was on a complete standstill, and the only way that people could live by is through some kind of assistance from outside their houses. And the government, in order to fulfill that, borrowed tons and tons of money during the pandemic. And so that is now a heavy load on our shoulders coming out of the pandemic. And Bongbong Marcos, he knows this. But as I was saying, all of a sudden, he prioritized on getting the Philippines ready for war, for arming the Philippines. But in Davos, he was saying that it was not necessary for the country to build up an armory. And just a few months, just a few weeks thereafter, here was his defense people, his foreign affairs people, meeting with the Americans in order to prioritize not on the needs of the Filipino, but on the needs of the American colonial master.
Okay, Ado. Let's take this one by one. Yeah, we understand. Yes, okay. We understand how important this is as far as not only foreign policy, but the survival of the country as it is. But we have witnessed our president, Junior Marcos, having almost daily meetings with not just his cabinet, but with different sectors of private and public society. He has made a number of pronouncements, a number of statements in his speeches. All of this tackling as, we have to look into this, tackling one by one the concerns of the country. For instance, he has taken over the Department of Agriculture precisely because he felt that, as you described it, we had practically no movement in production during the pandemic years. So it was necessary that we produce now so that we have food on the table. Many other concerns of our country has dealt with on a daily basis, Ado. There is not much concern that is being given prominence as far as the enhanced defense cooperation agreement is concerned. What is happening is there is a lot of narrative and speeches and a lot of groundbreaking for housing, for Kadiwa sites, for needs for nutrition, proper nutrition, etc. Not much is being given explanation insofar as the EDCA is concerned. But if we take into consideration one by one the many things that he is concerned with, as I've said, on a daily basis, practically meeting with his cabinet and all of this. So you could see that he narrates his plans and his programs, all of this, as often as once, twice a day, whenever he is on stage. He's made to address a ceremony, an anniversary, a groundbreaking. So all of this have been attended to by his words, by a lot of these speeches that he has made. And so somehow we are supposed to be taken by him into that particular level of his addresses, and something that perhaps we could look forward to or identify with as far as our destiny is concerned, if we may call it that. So the EDCA, or the Defense Cooperative Agreement, is really a very vital concern, not only of the office of the president, but of the entire country, but it's not given as much prominence as the other, the other items that he talks about on a daily basis. So that's how it goes. This is the 10 junior months, Ado.
This is all public relations. This is all diversionary tactic. Nothing is really happening on the ground.
Okay.
For instance, what is happening on the ground on when it comes to, it was announced that the sugar importation will be held. And then a few months thereafter, there was a sugar importation, much more than the quantity that was prevented from happening within 3 months of his administration. He keeps on talking about things from his speeches, from his talking points, but there is really nothing happening on the ground. How many times has he promised the people a 20 peso per kilo rice? Pero this is a play of words, because he's promising this sa Kadiwa stores. He's not promising this in the market. So it is a very subtle diversion from the reality that rice will no longer be even as low as 25 pesos. It can only be as low as 25 pesos if the government puts the subsidy into the market price of it. In fact, rice will no longer be below 30 pesos in the market. And even we are an archipelago and we are importing fish. Can you imagine that? So what's happening here? We are being flooded with speeches. Nothing is happening on the ground.
But that's exactly what he's trying. But yeah, Ado, that's exactly what he's trying to tell us. We are getting there. It's only been 10 junior months.
We are not getting anywhere. There are no programs. We have not seen any roadmap. We have not seen anything happening.
Well,
except people like Paglinawan in the agriculture being appointed, and he has been reappointed by 4 presidents and known to be an incompetent person, and now he is the mastermind behind this importation of sugar. Wow! And an executive secretary was fired a few months before, precisely on the sugar importation issue.
Okay,
Nothing is happening on the ground.
We have it there. We have sugar, we have onions, we have all of this all together. But you mentioned something about Kadiwa, for instance. And he has been all over the country in the Kadiwa stores. As a matter of fact, he holds, he touches the vegetables, etc. And exactly as his words express it, we are getting there. So as Secretary of Agriculture, he has also announced that he has planned to activate 1,500 fishing ports. So you speak about fishing. And all of this actually are part of the words that he has mentioned, and words to be translated, as he said, into programs which ought to be started already. In fact, as he said, we are getting there, meaning that he is on the I mean, our government is on the way, or our country is on the way. This is not coming to his defense at all, but listening to all the speeches that he has made, all the inaugurations, the thousands of homes that he has constructed, and even the very idea of proper nutrition for our children. All of this, well, as we said, this is like stretching into the present reality, the programs that his father and his mother had 37, 56 years ago, or thereabouts. Anyway, so he is actually doing his best to mobilize whatever forces he has with the members of his cabinet. You mentioned Secretary Paglinawan and so forth, and several others who have been, nung tawag nito, who have been reduplicated, or however else you would call them. But all of them are trying their best, I would want to believe, in his words, to function as such in accordance with the statement that he has made.
Then let's go to the brass tacks.
Okay.
Did he tell you? Did he tell us? Did he tell the people how he's going to build all the sports that he's promising? And a few weeks thereafter, his economic secretary is warning of a fiscal collapse. Where is he going to get the money? Where is he going to get the money? He tells us that he has already solicited more than $3 trillion of foreign direct investments. But who will invest in this country that is second only to Japan in the highest of electric rates? Our electric rates is 4 times that of China. Our electric rates is 60% more than Vietnam. Our electric rates, Indonesia only has 10% of our electric rates. That is why Indonesia is the number 10 manufacturing country in the world in only about 12 years, because it has done its homework. What is the reality of the ground? The reality of the ground is he will not reduce the electric rates. Why? Because it was just published just last week that Aboitiz made 32% increase in his profits. 32% in Aboitiz profits of Aboitiz Power. Can you imagine? In time of the economic tightness, you deliver 32%, and now there comes the announcement that the persons in uniform will no longer get their pension, because if the government continues to fund its pension, there will be a fiscal collapse. And then what happens to Land Bank just this week? Land Bank and Development Bank of the Philippines merged together. 2 big banks merging together. Why? Because the reality is we are facing a fiscal collapse. Why do I say so? Because we have not adjusted our position, the positioning of our economy. We are still in the petrodollar mode when everybody else is already shifting to the yuan. And yan ang problema. Nakatutok tayo sa mga Amerikanong pabagsak na ang ekonomiya, natatalo pa sa gera, matatalo na sa Ukraine, at gagawa na lang ng gera para mawala ang utang nila. Paano naman tayo na nakasapsap sa petrodollar nila? So, ano ang konklusyon? Dapat lumipat na tayo sa bagong New World Economic Order, but we are not doing that. The whole of ASEAN is already moving towards China. We are being left behind, and if we don't do that, sa kangkungan tayo dadamputin. Wala ng pera. Ang CHED, yung may bigoteng secretary ng CHED, sabi niya, wala na akong pera, panggastos. Wala ng pera ang gobyerno, Rita. Saan huhugot si Bongbong Marcos? Wala na. Walang nangyayari. Walang nangyayari. Inuna niya yung mga base-base militar na yan. Yan ang sinasabi ko. Okay. Wrong sense of priorities in time of a very necessity kung saan nagpunta ang usapan.
Okay, Ado. I would like to hold on to the fact that we are in this particular stage of either serious concern or impatience or some kind of an anxiety because what ought to be prioritized is not being prioritized. So let us lay it down insofar as this president, this Junior Marcos is concerned. It's only been 10 months, Ado. So, of all the different problems that were inherited from the past 37 years, he is actually doing his best, I would want to believe this, to address each one of them. That is why he is conducting a lot of these meetings on a daily basis. Because if you will really try to list down all the different meetings that he has held, cabinet and the private sector and with different sectors and with different communities and different organizations, he is actually stating many of the things that you are mentioning, Ado. So, pag sinasabi nga na puro salita lang, pero I am positive that when he mentions, for instance, that this has to be done, the cabinet secretary in charge of this should be doing something about it. Now, when we speak, for instance, of several statements that he has made in the past, one that he made when he was senator, one that he made just prior to his filing his certificate of candidacy, that is perhaps where we need further explanation from him. For instance, kagaya nga ng sinabi mo, sinabi niya noon na yung ating foreign policy ganito, ngunit pagkagaling niya sa Davos na iba ang timplada ng kanyang mga salita. At ngayon, nakikita natin na hindi lamang yung concern sa ating South China Sea at yung problema diyan. Ngunit, if you look at it really, there are two statements that are really coming out. One is that we have to continue with our dialogue with the People's Republic of China insofar as the conflict on several islets, rocks, etc. And the other statement is, again, the foreign minister of China and our foreign minister are looking into the opening of the exploration and the retrieval of natural resources also on the South China Sea. So makikita mo binabalanse din yung kanyang salita dito at yung salita ng nakaraan sa mga ngayon kasalukuyan na inutusan niya o yun ang sinasabi ng kanyang mga cabinet ministers. Now, what is disturbing, and perhaps this is where both of us would really request or demand, or however word you use for that, an explanation why we still have to add 4 American bases in our country after this president, our junior president, have mentioned this when he was senator. And when he criticized also the beginning of EDCA in 2014, when President Noynoy Aquino witnessed the signing of this agreement between the American ambassador and Secretary of Defense at that time. And at the time, we had our president, who was then senator, mentioning that, you know, there has to be a review of the military defense treaty. And this is not in consonance with our constitution and also not beneficial to our country. So he asked for a review of that, pero wala na nangyari because the Supreme Court na approved na ngayon. Now, it is the same thing that is being pursued, as you said. Kaya yun ang kinakailangan natin, that maybe we need another speech or another narrative to explain to the people the necessity of 4 additional American bases in our country at a time when there are other concerns. Well, as you said, agricultural productivity and all of these other items that are so necessary, such as the cost of electricity, our water distribution, and so forth. Yan ang kailangan na tugunan ng pansin. At hindi naman pwedeng ipatabi lang ito nga nangyayari ngayon because as you said, the world is in a crisis insofar as fiscal management is concerned. Lahat ng bansa nagkakaproblema tungkol dyan. And now we see that many countries now have joined in to disregard the use of the dollar and using their own currencies now insofar as many programs and projects are concerned. So, hindi pa tayo pumapasok dyan. Sa RCEP nga, RCEP, hindi pa tayo nakakapirma ng husto dyan. So, again, nakabitin. And then the disturbing statements, in fact, not just a statement, but the entire explanation of the Secretary of Finance, Secretary Diokno, the other day, regarding the pensions of our armed forces. Sinabi nga niya na pati yung, if you compare it with SSS, GSIS, etc., and all of that, kailangan talaga i-downsize. And this is in simultaneous action with the Americans being welcomed back. So makikita natin yung military defense, military establishment, parang hindi nagtutugma. So that is why we need, I don't know, another cabinet meeting, another pronouncement, another statement, another speech from him to explain exactly how all of this are related.
Alam mo, Rita, nabisto ko na the speeches are not corresponding with the actual roadmaps that they are presently having. Why? Kanino ko nahahuli? Kay Arsenio Balisacan. For instance, napaka-lofty, napaka-promising ng mga plano sa agriculture and all that stuff. But when push comes to shove, naglabas si Balisacan 2 weeks ago ng agricultural projection niya from 2023 to 2028. Alam mo ba ang growth projection ni Balisacan? 1.8 to 3.3%. 1.8 to 3.3%. Sabi ko, eto na ang problema, nagkakabistuhan na. Bakit? Because the average historical national productivity of the Department of Agriculture is 2.9. So asan? Asan ang growth? The additional of 0.4 to the 3.3? Or is it the reduction of the 1.1 from the 2.9? 1.8 to 3.3, that is not growth. That is stagnation of our agriculture industry. And this is coming from the NEDA secretary. This is fact. This is figure. This cannot lie. But Marcos Jr. saying speeches left and right always lies. And his cabinet people are lying to their teeth, even in defense of the Americans. Oh, for instance, isa-cite ko ito example na sinabi ni Valdes, no? Sinabi, by the way, ito si Valdes ang nagtaas ng mga sweldo ng mga yan ang dapat sisihin sa mga pagtataas ng sweldo ng mga people in uniform, lalo na sa military. Valdes and Anyo are engaged in mirrors, smokes and mirrors. Alam mo, sabi niya, eto, we have already talked to Governor Mamba, and he said for as long as the national government has decided, he will abide by the decision of the president. And I told him that we have already, we have already decided. So he will conform with the decision. Nahulog ako sa silya ko. Ano ito, martial law? Tapos ano sabi ni Mamba? I maintain my stand against any foreign forces stationed in the province, still against EDCA sites in my province. Ito naman si Anyo. Ano sinasabi ni Anyo? Na, ito, dinefine niya ang ating I don't know if this is acceptable to you, Rita. Is this our national security priority? The government is concerned about improving our defense capability, modernizing equipment and assets, and developing the country country's military infrastructure. Over what? In the midst of hunger and poverty that has now risen back to 24% poverty incidence after the pandemic. Tapos ang sabi pa niya, it is our idea raw ng AFP. Idea raw ng Pilipinas itong additional sites and locations. My goodness, last February 2, 2003, Rita, the U.S. Naval Institute based in Maryland, USA, issued these statements 2 months ago. Sabi niya, what was that? February, so that will be November last year. 2 months ago, the Philippine military disclosed, that the U.S. has identified and asked for 5 additional locations for EDSA. 1 site each in Palawan, Zambales, Isabela, and 2 sites in Cagayan. The U.S. asked for this. Ang aking tinatanong dito, nireduce nila sa 4, tapos ideya na nila. I mean, kaya naman ng Pilipinas makiramay sa Pangulo. Nakiramay tayo kay Duterte. Nakisama tayo sa isa't isa in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Pero walang panloloko na ganito. Walang pangbobola. Paglulubid-lubid ng kasinungalingan, kabalantunan at kalokohan ito. Niloloko tayo ng gabinete ni Marcos sa depensa at sa foreign affairs. Yan ang sinasabi ko eh. Kasi the way I look, the way I analyze Bongbong Marcos now, he is everywhere but nowhere. I don't even know his priorities. One time he dances with the Chinese. After 2 months, he's dancing with the Americans. But dancing with the Americans will mean that you have to dance, if you're dancing with the Americans boogie, kailangan boogie rin ang ano mo. Pero hindi, ngayon nakikipagtango siya sa Armed Forces of the Philippines dahil malilintikan ng pensyon ng mga uniform personnel. Para sa akin, ito na ang katapusan niya pag hindi niya naayos to. Ito na ikatatanggal niya. He will be the second Marcos to be removed from office. I'm sorry to say that. But the horizon is very dark for him. Ang mga eksplanasyon kung bakit siya nakikipaglaro sa Americans, ang dami nang lumalabas. Unang-una, blinakmail daw siya sa hidden wealth sa Amerika. Of course, you don't believe that because you know more than what these people are saying. Pangalawa, brinaso daw siya, natatanggalin siya, regime change, katulad ng pagtanggal sa tatay niya. Another theory na lumalabas ngayon, alam mo ba kung ano, Rita? Yung first 20 million sa presidential election count of 2022, lumalabas na electronically generated. So even sa election na ngayon, may lumalabas na question. And then may lumalabas pa pang-apat na anggulo na ang nagpapatakbo daw ng bansa ngayon na hindi naman si Bongbong Marcos, kundi si Mrs. President. So, lumalabas, takusa siya, takot sa asawa, takot na sa US, takot pa sa asawa. Paano na tayo ngayon? What I'm saying is, if really it is critical for the Filipino people to suffer together with our government, with our president, we will do so. We are a very resilient people. Pero not at the expense of 32% increased profit for the aboitiz who are the best friend of Bongbong Marcos. Hindi tatanggapin ng tao yan. Dahil pag tinignan mo yung electric bill mo, binabayaran ko pala ito electric bill ko para kumita lang yung mga oligarch na nakapaligid kay Marcos. Hindi tatanggapin eh. Hindi ko siya binabanatan dito. Sinasabi ko sa kanya, kung gusto niyang magtagal sa kanyang pwesto, buksan niya ang kanyang bintana, buksan niya ang kanyang pintuan, at lumapit siya sa mga totoong tao na makakatulong sa kanya. Sa ngayon ang perception na papaligiran siya ng mga dilawan. Oh, so even among the supporters of BBM, merong strife, merong conflict, merong dissonance. This is as we approach the Holy Week. Kaya maraming pagninilay-nilay, maraming reflection, meditation ang kailangan ngayong Pasko, nitong Pasko, Pasko na ito. Ang tawag dyan, Domingo de Pascua. No? So, ang akin lang, sama-sama tayo. Kung maghihirap tayo, sama-sama tayo. Hindi yung naghihirap tayo, nanlilimahid sa tubo yung mga oligarko na barkada ng ating Pangulo. Yun lang naman ang sinasabi ko. Kasi pag nangyari ang perception na yan at nag-stick yan, ewan ko na kung saan aabot ang termino ng kagalang-galang ng Pangulo ng Republika ng Pilipinas.
Listening to you and also from a lot of feedback that we're getting from the people, many of which we have not really brought out here. Pero sabi nga ni Ado, he has already summarized exactly so many important and urgent concerns which should be attended to. I'm flabbergasted talaga sa mga hindi lamang sa feedback na yan, ngunit sa pakiramdam din ng nakakarami. And I would always want to believe that this 10 junior months is actually on the table of 31.5 million votes. So kung ganon kalaki ang tiwala ng tao sa kanya nung siya ay hinalal, sana ay maintindihan din ng kanyang pamahalaan na kinakailangan na sagutin din sa taong bayan yung tiwala na yan by, as you've said, attending to these concerns directly and in reality. We have, as I've summarized it, so many of the speeches and statements and meetings and so many of these narratives, which if you put it all together, meron na naman talaga siyang sense of a love for country and people. Hindi lang siguro nagkakatugma-tugma yung lahat na yan at talagang natututukan. At ang talagang the dark cloud over us, and I have to emphasize this the way Ado is emphasizing it likewise, is this proclivity to accommodate the United States of America's concerns here in the South China Sea, which is of no concern to us. Kasi kung talagang titingnan ninyo yung EDCA na yan in its original provision, sinasabi nga dyan para sa climate change, para in case of natural disasters. Malayo pa yung sinasabi na in case of a defense of our country. Wala yun, hindi nakasulat yun doon. Nasa Mutual Defense Treaty yan, na si President Edralin Marcos na rin na nagsabi that it will take a while before we can be saved by America. And we had that experience in the last World War. We were occupied by the Japanese for how many years? 4 or 5 years? Kasi nga, tinapos mo nila yung gera sa Europe bago tayo binalikan nung sinasabi nga ni MacArthur, I shall return. So whatever it is, these are the priorities of not the season, not Holy Week, but of the day. Kaya sabi ko nga, Ado, talagang nakakabahala. At kung si President Jr. ay nakaupo na dyan sa 31.5 million voters na umaasa na ayusin niya ang palakad ng ating pamahalaan, ay kinakailangan siguro sa mga susunod na kanyang mga statements and pronouncements, ikwento niya sa atin, saan ba talaga patungo itong ginagawa ng ating Defense Ministry, ng ating Department of Finance at lahat yung mga nasakop niya sa kabinete para sa kabutihan ng taong bayan. So that is where we really have to, Ado, be a little patient. We have 10 junior months and there is still 5 years or so ahead of us. In 2 months' time, we will be seeing perhaps new faces sapagkat yung mga natalo ng huling eleksyon, it will take a year for them to be appointed. Let us hope that there will be other faces and other minds that can be running our government for the better nabanggit mo nga si Balisacan sa NEDA, but if you really if you really go through with the fine-tooth comb, sabi ko nga, yung mga data ng NEDA na yan, meron tayong isang malaking libro na ginawa ito nung panahon pa ni President Ferdinand Edrelin Marcos na talagang hinimay ang bawat lugar ng ating bansa. At sa ngayon nga, yung pag-merge ng mga bangko, kailangan yan tingnan din ano nangyari sa agrarian reform. Hindi rin nakabuti sa ating productivity. Ang daming kailangan ipagdugsong. So again, we cannot just look at it piece by piece, because governance, even if you are the only one seated at the pinnacle of power, all of that becomes your priority. So Mr. President, Mr. Junior President, talagang kinakailangan po ay tugunan na itong mga sinasabi nga natin dito sa ating palatuntunan, at marami pa rin na lumalabas. Hindi ito complaints, ngunit these are serious concerns of people who supported you, believed in you, and would want you to succeed, you being considered as a destined leader. Kasi after 37 years, kapangalan mo yung ama mo na talagang isa rin na nagbigay ng tinatawag nating the ideology and the vision for our people. Kaya sundan natin yan at ipagpatuloy natin yung nakaraan na yan, sapagkat kinakailangan that somewhere in the small corner of our minds, there belongs the history of where we came from. At yan, Mr. President Junior, mahalaga na hindi lang balikan, ngunit tingnan yung mga nagawa na nung nakaraan na pwedeng ipagpatuloy pa sa kasalukuyan. Yes, Ado, it is Holy Week. That is why, as you said, we have to go into some kind of a flagellation, so to speak, with a great sense of humility, so that we can bow down before our Lord and take the responsibility of governance seriously in our hearts. Meron tayong mga dito, mga comments na babasa mo ba, Ado? Mga lumalabas dito? Ito na. Can you read this? Yes?
Okay, let's do it. Celia Roderos, thumbs up and love. Conversion sa Long Kong. Good afternoon, Ma'am Rita Gadi. Liderio Candido Joselito. Good day po, KDP. Freddy Oredina present. Indira. Hi, Ms. Rita, good afternoon. Hi, Madam Rita, Little 99. Gadi, hand pink, waving, Junior is weak. Tama, Serrado, sabi niya food security, pero yung smugglers, namamayag pa galing tayo sa pandemic, tapos bebenta tayo ng sibuyas na overpriced at hindi naharang ni Junior, samantalang DA President siya. At masisira ang kadiwa. Sinasabi ni Junior na yung smuggling goods ibebenta pa, di ba ang kadiwa kaya itinatag para sa local farmers at doon magbenta ng crops? Bakit hindi sa smugglers manggaling ay ibebenta sa kadiwa? And so on and so forth. Hindi ba makakasira sa kadiwa yan? Mads Kerubim. Magandang hapon po, Ma'am Rita, patuloy na ilahat ng magandang nagawa ng dating Pangulong Marcos Sr. at ang kanyang administrasyon sa San Lorenzo Ruiz Sacramento TV, PRRD said Americans massacre one barrios. Hindi lang ho one barrio, marami ho yan. Ang toll po niya ay nasa 200,000 all over the Philippines. BBM cannot even solve the smuggling. Puro band-aid, kadiwa, Pedro Hill, words nothing, but words were getting nowhere. Amparo Consuelo, established kadiwa store, poverty corridor of the Philippines. Cesar Soberano, good afternoon to Crossroads. Let go now because the Americans and the oligarchs continue to control and oppress the Filipino people. We have to get to the right side of history. Bienvenido Tan, heroes don't die, heroes multiply. Hallelujah, to God be the glory. Lawrence Robert Tapos, Halpin, priority in PBM, large-scale power plants. Such BD and PP, mag-create lang daw ng battery facilities. Lawrence Robert Tampos, also continuing. Susme, uutang na naman ang mga oligarchs, government finance, pero pasakit. Maglalagay ng batch storage facility sa Bataan. Amparo Consuelo, aside from the huge profits, Aboitiz was also recently granted a loan in hindi po millions of pesos, 20 billion pesos from Land Bank of the Philippines within a few months of the Marcos administration. Alexis Neri, pati pension mga retirees at active personnel na damay na. Rodel Ronyo, Kaado, kung saka, IP, hindi ko maintindihan. Yamang yan. Alexis Neri, tsaka saan pala yung sinasabi na investment niya na pumunta siya ng Singapore at nag-tour pala ng tumingin ng mga karera. Well, Pedro Hill, hi madam, pinaasa pa ninyo kami ng isang manggagamit, hindi yan makukuha ng magagandang salita. I don't think so. I think Rita was just playing on the optimistic and giving the president, of course, all the chances that he is entitled to because he is elected. Mary Geraldine, yan ang mga meeting na ginawa niya, puro kalokohan. Sa DA na lang, wala nagagawa. Smuggling, hoarding, EDCA drugs, marami pang iba. Amparo Consuelo, the people should be regularly informed and shown proof of cheap and affordable sugar, sibuyas, rice, meat, water, and electricity. And I am really on the side of the president, especially when he made the recent appeal, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, about itong Maharlika Fund, no? Pero ang problema dito, ang advice ko sa kanya, asikasuhin mo muna yung joint oil exploration natin with China para katulad ng Norway, katulad ng Singapore, katulad ng Indonesia, magkaroon ka ng backup fund for your Maharlika Fund. Yan. Ang mga sovereign fund po ng Norway, Singapore at Indonesia ang pinaka-successful sa buong mundo dahil imposibleng bumagsak dahil sa lakas ng backup fund yan. Yan po ang ating isang passing advice to the president. And we know that it's difficult in Malacanang these days. But ang problema kasi is I think the president himself is choking himself by limiting his bench. Maliit na yung bench niya dahil alam niyo naman, didiretsahin ko na, no? He was born with a hindi silver spoon in his mouth. He was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. So, yung kanyang circle maliit na talaga. Para sa akin, consult the human resource consultants who are specializing in this field because you really have to hunt for the right people in the manner and ferociousness that Ferdinand Marcos Sr. Used Paeng Salas, Alejandro Melchor to find out who in society can help the government the best. That's why we came up with the word technocrats, if you will remember. We are in bad need of technocrats. Ito pong mga liberal economists na katulad ni Ben Jokno, dapat itong mga ito pag-retire na dahil they have been there for the longest time and our problems just keep on repeating and entering a revolving door, vicious cycle. Yan, Madam Rita, ang aking parting shot.
And so we enter Holy Week, each of us, as Ado has said, building and bonding our relationship with our Lord. And that is the most important element of our lives. We have this secular world, which we are discussing and we have discussed, and we continue to have this crossfire precisely so that you could see all angles that we can present to you. And again, as we've said, trust in the Lord, trust in our leaders, trust in yourselves. So again, happy Easter to everyone, and may God bless our country. Thank you for having joined me. Thank you, Ado, for all of those words of prayer and wisdom. And thank you to all of those who have given your messages and your remarks. Maraming salamat po. This is Rita Gadi with Ado Paglinawan for Crossfire.